and we'll have a conversation on the back of that right now. Wale Oloko is policy analyst, is based in Lagos, Nigeria, who's joining us via Zoom. Wale, thank you so much for your company here. Let's dig right into this gubernatorial elections coming up. What are your expectations of the election, particularly to do with voter turnout, given what we saw in the presidential election?
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. I believe we are going to have perhaps a turnaround to the extent that we are going to have more voters, because there are some issues at stake now. For example, there are some sitting governors that are supposed to go to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They have lost such opportunity. So it's not impossible that those governors that are taken over from them will now have to put on their ticking cap and think about how to get the voters out this time around. All over the place, there are flashpoints here and there where the debate over whether the Labour Party, which has become sort of now a revolution, although we said that there's no structure, but it's given them a longer a run for their money. So it's going to also affect the turnout, especially in Lagos. So you can see that all over the country, we do not expect violence. I don't expect violence at all. I think everything will go on smoothly. But of course, we are going to have some flashpoints here and there. But that notwithstanding, the turnout is going to be different, although in some areas, some people are just going to give up because there's nothing at stake in some states. So it's here and there, we're going to have something like a balance. Huge turnout in some areas, and perhaps
and no turnouts in others. But logistically speaking, the gubernatorial elections will be much more complex than the presidential elections. Given what we now know as the performance of INEC in that elections, what do you think could happen? What would the outlook be like for INEC on March 18th?
But I really don't understand what you mean by logistics going to be different, and then because of commitments here and there. It's still going to be everybody going to participate, and they're going back to their polling units. What you may now talk about is the collation. And I've always mentioned that the issue of politics and elections in Nigeria is not that of voting per se. It's the issue of collation. And what we have been observing and what beavers have been showing us is that collation is key in the process. And if you listen to what the Labour Party presidential candidate mentioned, he clearly stated that he was not against the pronouncement of INEC, but the process that led to the announcement. And that is just the truth.
And that process is what I'm bringing into the gubernatorial elections. How do you think the lessons have been learned? Do you find this to be more challenging for the elections management body, perhaps?
I don't think so. I think what is going to happen is that they have learned their lessons. Although INEC mentioned something like technical glitches, and up till now, no explanation as to regard to what they meant by technical glitches. So maybe after the elections, they will be able to do a kind of a review and then come out to tell us what happened. But I think we are not likely, I'm being hopeful and optimistic that we are not likely to have the issues of by the BVAC not being able to transmit results from polling unit directly to INEC server. I think they will have overcome that by now, I guess. And I so much hope that that will be the case. And like you rightly mentioned, logistics-wise, yes, they're still going to distribute election materials, both sensitive and non-sensitive, to every nook and corner of the country. And I think they already have opportunity over the last 3 weeks to be able to do their work.
Very well. Let's run along. Let's run along on to other matters. Again, before we look at just a couple of key states to watch out for in the elections, I want to find out from you, what do you think will be the deciding issues, whether or not, again, the LP shows up strongly in, the second phase of the elections, or perhaps it could go either way with the APC and PDP as we have known them?
Well, the bottom line is that in elections in Nigeria, there is nothing like ideology. You don't find conservatives, you don't have Democrats, you don't have socialists, you don't have capitalists. What is important to Nigerians is perhaps what we call the individuals and the so-called godfathers that will actually be behind the throne to be able to determine where the elections go. But we should not rule out that what you can call out the fallout of the LP structure and then the influence in some states. And that is why you have some governors now coming out to really do house-to-house campaign. What they have not been able to do in the last 3, 4, 5 years, they are now trying to do it to be able to connect to the people. It is not going to
so Wale, I guess what I'm asking is, do you see the LP replicating its presidential showing in the gubernatorial race as well?
No, Kabir, I understand what you are saying. But what I'm trying to tell you is this, that to a large extent, we are not going to have the huge win like we have, because we're only going to have elections in 28 states. So there are some states that are not participating at all for now. So when you remove those states, then you now find that the areas are just the key ones that are important to LP. There are some areas where LP does not exist. And that's the truth. And they're going to have elections in those places as well. What we are likely to have, the battleground, so to say. And that is where you are going to see whether actually LP has come to stay or it's just a fleeting moment for them. But I guess that it's given a lot of politicians some concerns, some areas where some governors.
Listen, one of those areas is our backyard here in Lagos. We've seen Gbadebo Rose Viva up against the sitting governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. What are you thinking? Will Viva come out strong against Sanwo-Olu?
Actually, I would have wished that you would not ask this kind of question. Especially,
I mean, what's your analysis of how the campaign is going so far? That's all I'm asking.
Look, okay, I think, like I mentioned earlier, you are seeing a situation where the governor himself has been forced out of the government house in Alausa to be going to places. And just this morning, somebody sent a WhatsApp message to me where the governor, with the former governor of Ekiti State, they were at the Muritala Mohammed local terminal talking to the drivers at that place. That is to tell you that everybody knows that something at stake, something big at stake. Notwithstanding that, to a large extent, the governor has done well. But is there any room for improvement? Yes. Nobody will say there's no room for improvement. Must we do things differently? Yes. The APC, as a party in the state, will no longer take the people for granted. Another video that I got, I think 2 days ago, a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is the Minister of Interior, had to go back to his constituency. And in that video, a young man, telling him that we don't see you people until when there is election.
Indeed.
We don't even know our council. So you can see that it's really a battleground, so to say.
Absolute battleground indeed. And we'll see how that goes. It's only this weekend. We'll find out if the LP can replicate its presidential showing in Lagos, or perhaps, the APC still has a strong hold on voters in Lagos. Thank you so much, Wale, for your time here on The Square.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.